Appalachian Genealogy presents the Circuit Rider's Journal.
All right, so if you've ever gotten stuck in your family research, I'm talking about hitting a total brick wall, especially in the Appalachian region. Your answer might not be hiding in a courthouse. Nope, it could be tucked away in the worn-out journal of a preacher on horseback. Today, we are diving into the world of circuit riders, and believe me, they're way more than just historical figures. They might just be the unsung keepers of your family story.
I mean, just try to imagine that quiet. Picture it. You're in a tiny, remote cabin, miles and miles from the nearest town. And then you see a figure appearing on the horizon. This isn't just any visitor. For so many people back then, this was their only connection to the outside world. It was a lifeline, literally arriving on horseback.
Okay, so let's get right to it. What exactly is a circuit rider? Well, the name pretty much says it all. It was an itinerant minister, a traveling preacher, who rode a planned route, a circuit, all through the wilderness. These folks didn't have a big, fancy church building. Their congregation, well, it was the entire frontier, one isolated family at a time.
So let's talk about these riders on the frontier. Who were these guys, really? I'll tell you this much. Their job went way, way deeper than just showing up to deliver a Sunday sermon.
Seriously, you can think of them as the original social network. I'm not kidding. They were the ones carrying news from distant counties, sometimes even delivering letters. They were the glue connecting families who'd moved to different parts of the frontier. You got to remember, in an era with no real mail service or newspapers in these remote spots, this circuit rider was the news. They were the primary source for pretty much all information.
But what was it really like to be one of these riders? Let's talk about life in the saddle. Because let me tell you, it was a life of non-stop motion, incredible hardship, and just an unbelievable level of commitment.
So, to really get it, you have to understand we're talking about a pretty specific window in American history. These circuit riders that kind of burst onto the scene in the late 18th century, right as the nation was pushing west. Then, their influence just explodes during this period of intense religious revival. You might have heard of it, the Second Great Awakening. They really hit their peak in the decades right before the Civil War.
And this really paints a picture of a rider's reality. I mean, just look at the sheer austerity of their lives. We're talking about young guys, most of them unmarried because, well, how could you have a family with this kind of job? Everything they owned had to fit in a saddlebag. A Bible, a journal, maybe some food. And church? That could be a family's tiny cabin, a barn, or just an open field. And every single mile they rode was a risk. And here's the number that really hits home. Less than 30 years. That was the average life expectancy for a lot of these guys. The constant travel, the exposure to rain and snow and heat, the risk of getting sick, it all took a brutal, brutal toll. Many of these incredibly dedicated riders didn't even live to see their 30th birthday. It was just a life of unimaginable sacrifice.
Okay, so we've talked about the history, the hardship, but here's the big question, right? How does all of this help you, the modern-day researcher trying to unlock your family history? Well, this is where their story turns into an absolutely powerful genealogical tool. And why is this so important? Here's the thing. On the frontier, official records were spotty at best. Courthouses burned down, families lived miles and miles from where you'd go to file a deed. Census takers? They could easily miss entire communities tucked away in the mountains. But the circuit riders, they went everywhere. And most importantly, they wrote things down. So where do you even start looking for these records? Let's break down 5 key strategies. Okay, step 1, track the early circuits. You're looking for church minutes, membership rolls, baptismal lists. This stuff is genealogical gold. Step 2, hunt down their journals and memoirs. This is where you find the personal stuff. Notes on families, who was sick, who had a new baby. Step 3, find something called class books. These are basically attendance records, and they can be the proof you need to place an ancestor in a specific spot at a specific time. Okay, step 4, follow the migration patterns. If you know the route a rider took, you can literally trace your ancestors' footsteps as they moved. And finally, step 5, dig into the archives. Church and university archives are your best friends here. They often have conference records and maps that tie this whole puzzle together.
All right, theory is one thing, but let's look at a real-world genealogical case study. This is going to show you just how powerful this can be and how one little journal entry can crack a puzzle that's been cold for centuries.
So here's the setup, the brick wall. A researcher is totally stuck on a family in eastern Tennessee, way back in 1824. They know the family was there, but there are no early land deeds and the census entries are just fragments. It's like the family just appears and then vanishes, a total classic genealogical brick wall.
And then comes the missing link. The clue came from a place no one thought to look, a circuit rider's journal, preserved for 200 years. This rider was traveling through that exact area, in that exact year, and he noted a visit to a remote homestead.
And here is the breakthrough. This is where the magic happens. The journal entry didn't just name the family, it also mentioned their location and their neighbors. And get this, that little detail revealed their migration patterns and confirmed all these kinship ties. It was the key. That single entry connected dots that no deed or census record ever could have. The whole case was blown wide open.
Okay, so beyond just being this amazing tool for breaking down our genealogical brick walls, why does their journey matter so much? What's the bigger picture here? Well, their legacy is literally woven into the fabric of early Appalachia.
And this quote just says it all perfectly. Circuit riders were more than religious figures. They were cultural connectors whose movements shaped the social fabric of early Appalachia. You see, they weren't just passing through. They were actively building communities. By connecting all these isolated little homesteads, they helped create a shared culture, a shared identity across this huge, rugged landscape.
So what's the lasting legacy for researchers like us? What are the big takeaways? Well, first, their records give us these incredible glimpses into daily frontier life. Second, they're like maps of old community networks. They also give us real insight into the spiritual lives of our ancestors, and maybe most crucially, they provide that vital data in places where civil records are just gone. They fill in the blanks.
When you really think about it, to follow their path is to follow the threads of faith and resilience that our Appalachian ancestors left behind. It's so much more than just a research strategy. It's a way to connect with the real human story of these families.
So I want to leave you with this question. For all of you out there who are deep into your own family research, what have you found? What discoveries have you made in church records or circuit journals that helped you see your Appalachian ancestors more clearly? I'd love to know.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, follow, and share. Be sure to visit the blog at www.appalachiangenealogy.com for more.